libertarians. They don't want to be conservative. They don't want to be liberal. They just, it's like we saw one of the biggest, stars of 80s cinema, Kurt Russell, come out and say, I'm not liberal, I'm not conservative, I'm 1776, I'm Americana. I know he's a listener. I know that, so many other big top stars are listeners, obviously, of InfoWars, because we're one of the only alternative ideas out there. Not that we're even that good. It's just everybody else is following this cookie cutter situation. Bruce Willis, Brad Pitt was a listener like 10 years ago. Just you name it. I mean, I've been at these parties with a lot of these people, and they're all just scared to death. That's why it's so good to see a Kurt Russell or somebody else come out and say, I'm against the New World Order, I'm against what's happening, because they realize they're challenging that whole Hollywood mafia. I mean, I've had Sumner Redstone call up, now he's basically senile and gone, and threaten people that have come on my show. I talked to Mark Cuban in a conference call, and he said, yeah, I was going to put this movie on 1,000 screens. I'm getting White House threats of prison. And you're like, okay, well, you're ducking out of the project. A year later, it's in the New York Times. He publishes the emails where the Bush administration says, if you expose 9/11 with Alex Jones, we're going to put you in prison. So, I mean, I've experienced this. More of Ask Me Anything from our live event last Tuesday on Reddit. But before I do that, I want to remind viewers and listeners, today is the last day of the Tim Kennedy special on a lot of the top nutraceuticals at InfoWarsLife.com. 15% off on Brain Force. 15% off on Super Male Vitality and Super Female Vitality. And, of course, 15% off on Secret 12, pure, organic, sublingual vitamin B12 underneath the tongue. That is a huge discount on these already discounted products. And as you know, the profit we make from it is how we're able to get more reporters, more correspondents, have more investigative journalists, and do what we're doing right here. InfoWars, over and over again, is at the very tip of the spear in the forefront of defending human liberty. I don't want to have to expand in the face of tyranny. I hope that others would have done it, but because we are the most successful out there, except for people like Drudge or a few others, we have a responsibility to be as hardcore as possible and to do everything we can. And I want to thank you for your support. That's why we bring you the very best products at the lowest prices we can, whether it's high-quality storable food or water filtration systems or the good halogen like X2. Everything we do is a derivative of our deep research into the globalist and things they don't want us to know about. So take advantage today at InfoWarsLife.com on 15% off on many of the leading nutraceuticals that we provide you there with. And again, I want to thank all the viewers, all the listeners, all the supporters for what you've done in the past, because you built InfoWars. You built these studios. You built the infrastructure that would allow freedom-fighting patriots to have a platform to get on an even playing field, or somewhat of an even playing field like David and Goliath, at least get in the same arena with the New World Order and take action. So the Tim Kennedy special running right now ends tonight at midnight at InfoWarsStore.com or InfoWarsLife.com, or by simply calling toll-free 888-253-3139.
How do you feel about the Democratic Party's need to fix inner-city communities while never addressing the root of the cause?
Well, Obama's doubled unemployment, on his watch for black Americans, African Americans, because they want to keep them dependent. They don't ever want you to get out of that. So absolutely, their whole program is make us dependent. Obama went to Africa and said you can't have air conditioning or cars. This is about austerity. These are selling us to end innovation. The elite have gotten enough innovation. They're done. They're going to live forever, merge with machines, they think. So why should you have innovation? That's my answer. Leanne?
Well, I agree. I think also, too, the gay community can kind of see now, it's like they take all these little minority groups and you're like their pet project until they don't need you anymore. And so they support you only to the extent that they can convince to get more government power in order to help you.
Exactly. Instead, we need individual freedom, whether you're white, black, Hispanic, Asian, Easter Bunny, purple, polka dotted. Everybody has these freedoms, period. And then it doesn't matter because individuals have that freedom. But government wants us all boxed up in little groups they claim they're catering to.
Well, it's easier to control a large group of people who are all thinking the same and acting the same and will do whatever you tell them, it's harder to control individuals.
Exactly, where you have little minders that tell them what the new language is.
Right.
Leanne, I take it you're not looking forward to the Alamo Draft House female urinals?
It's just impossible. And like, I don't care about the transgender issue. Obviously, I know transgender people. I know quite a few. I think that there's like a doctor in town who performs, because there is a huge transgender community in Austin. I don't care.
We're not against them.
It's
not
just
like, holy hell, leave us alone.
That's not the problem. The problem is, what are the logistics of getting a woman to stand up to pee? Like, how do you even do that?
I think they're just trying
to push it. It's insulting.
I think they're just trying to see how far they can push this.
That's it. No, it's good. It's all fun.
Well, he wanted some feedback and he got it.
He did. C-SPAN Spam says, a few weeks ago you said on Coast to Coast that you've spoken with Trump about resisting the globalists. Can you expound on that?
Well, I've spoken to Trump on air, and I know that my message has been relayed to him. I'm not going to get into any private discussions here. Trump knows what's going on with the globalist. Either he's telling me he knows and doesn't know, or he's playing a double cross us, or he's for real. I don't know. All I know is he's got the establishment really upset and really scared. And I like Donald Trump, and I'm going to be supporting Donald Trump.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host on this Tuesday, June 21st, 2016, our fourth hour. We're going to be going to some of the callers that Alex did not get to in the earlier part of the show. We're going to talk to them in the next segment. Before we do, just noticed this article that was on Drudge Report. Of course, we have it up on InfoWars as well. Secret Service says a raging Hillary Clinton threw a Bible at a colleague. Now, I guess we could call her a bitter flinger, because we've heard Barack Obama talk about all those bitter clingers who cling to their guns and their Bibles. He doesn't have a problem with those who cling to their guns, their bombs, and their Qurans, does he? No, it's just the people who have guns and Bibles that they're concerned about. But of course, I think it all boils down to temperament, doesn't it? We see that when we had these 4 gun control measures defeated yesterday in the Senate, she had a one-word response. Enough. That's what Hillary Clinton said. Enough. Now, what does she mean by that? Enough. She mean enough for the democratic process? I'm going to do it as a dictator with executive orders when I become president? I don't really care what your elected representatives say. I don't really care about the Constitution. Enough for the democratic process, enough for the Constitution. I'm going to do it myself. See, I think that's her temperament, quite frankly. And of course, she threw this at a Secret Service agent's head. That's the most amazing thing about this, I think, is all the abuse that she flings and hurls at those who are risking their lives to protect her. That's the arrogance, the self-centeredness of this woman, of these people in power. It's just absolutely amazing to me. They say being assigned to Hillary Clinton's detail was, quote, a form of punishment handed down by passive-aggressive middle management. It's kind of like Hogan's Heroes, where if you screw up, you're going to get sent to the Russian front. Well, with Hillary Clinton, with a Secret Service, you screw up, you're going to get sent to Hillary Clinton's security detail. You don't want that. Okay, he's gonna come after you with everything. And the interesting thing is, too, we got a report today from the Washington Post, Chris Zilla, pointing out that Hillary Clinton has set a new record. 200 days. 200 days since she last held a press conference. Last time she held a press conference, not a single vote had been cast in the presidential primaries. That's how long it's been. That's the arrogance, the insularity of this woman, the unaccountability of this woman. She's had enough for the democratic process. Of course, we've heard this many times from Barack Obama. These guys, they just can't get the answer that I want. Yeah, I want them to do this, and they don't do it. So I'm going to do an executive order. I'm just going to do an end around the Congress. I don't really care about your elected representatives. You elected me as dictator in chief. So I'm going to do whatever I wish. Now, the Senate has rejected 4 gun control measures. And this is all centering around these so-called watch lists. And understand a couple of things. Number one, it's fine if we want to investigate somebody and put somebody on a terror watch list and say, well, we're going to secretly investigate this person. And of course, the FBI has said, we don't want you to block their gun purchases necessarily because we're investigating them and we don't want them to know that they're being investigated. Well, if they got a legitimate reason to investigate somebody, to some degree, that's okay. But the biggest problem with this is the fact that they are now assessing penalties based on you being on this secret watch list. So now this is punishment. Now this is going beyond the Constitution. This is taking away our Sixth Amendment to due process. And of course, we already have that, don't we? We already have a no-fly list. So they put you on this secret list, and then on the basis of you being on this list, you are now judged to be a risk to society, as if you had had due process, as if you had had a public trial, as if you had been able to confront your accusers, as if you had been able to call witnesses in your defense, as if you had been able to have a real public trial, and they assess penalties on you. But before any of that has happened. And so we have this pre-crime situation here, and they want to extend it now to something else. Why? Because we tolerated this with the no-fly list. Just as we now have this Supreme Court decision coming out, and I agree, I found myself agreeing with Sotomayor. I'm absolutely amazed. But she was absolutely right, but in the minority in the Supreme Court. They had a 5-3 majority opinion that said that illegal stops are fine, and we can arrest people. We can use things that we find in an illegal stop where we don't have probable cause, where we don't have a search warrant. We can use all that stuff to come after somebody. And she said, by legitimizing conduct that produces a double consciousness, this case tells everyone, white, black, guilty, innocent, that an officer can verify your legal status at any time. It says your body is subject to invasion while courts excuse a violation of your rights. It implies you are not a citizen of a democracy, but the subject of a carceral state just waiting to be cataloged. You see, gun owners need to understand this, that we cannot allow all of our civil liberties to be taken. The Bill of Rights either stands together or we will lose all of our rights. Remember, beginning of the Republic, we will hang together or we will hang separately. The pictures that showed the 13 colonies like a snake that was chopped up. And it said, join or die. Stand together or you're going to die. And that is true of our individual liberties as well. The Bill of Rights and the Constitution stands collectively together or we lose everything. The gun owners lose their rights. Other people lose their civil liberties. If the gun owners won't stand against the encroachment on our civil liberties in the name of the war on drugs, then don't expect to keep your Second Amendment either. You're going to lose your First Amendment. You're going to lose your Second Amendment. You're going to lose all of them. You either get all of these, the Constitution is taken as a whole, the Bill of Rights taken as a whole. These are principles about individual liberty. They're guarantees of our individual liberty that were given to us, that we possess as individuals, as human beings, as children of God, okay? There are natural rights. If we allow you to take them in one area, then they're going to go everywhere. We need to understand that, left and right. And so we need to stand against all these infringements. We can't allow them to piecemeal take our freedoms like they do at the airport, for example. When she starts to talk about this, and of course, the situation is they were surveilling a house. They saw a guy come out of the house. They didn't have a warrant for him. They detained him. They said they found an outstanding arrest warrant for a traffic violation. Then they search further. They find some drugs, and then they arrest him. Now, the Utah Supreme Court said, no, they didn't have probable cause. And yet, in an opinion written by Clarence Thomas, who normally I agree with, okay, he takes a very authoritarian approach. He says, all the evidence suggests that the stop was an isolated instance of negligence on the part of the police that occurred in connection with a bona fide investigation of a suspected drug house. Well, I would say if it's an isolated instance of neglect, then why would the Supreme Court look at this? The Supreme Court doesn't look at isolated incidents. The Supreme Court looks at something that has broad implications. So that is doublespeak at the very beginning. But then Sotomayor said this. She says, do not be soothed by the opinion's technical language. This case allows the police to stop you on the street, to demand your identification, to check it for outstanding traffic warrants, even if you're doing nothing wrong. Oh, we know that is happening. That's happening everywhere. It's going to happen even more extensively. And it happens at the airport. I have to prove my innocence as if I'm a criminal to these people before I can travel at the airport. And it's the travel security or safety or whatever they are, the TSA. I don't even know or care what they call themselves. They're unconstitutional. They are an affront to the Fourth Amendment. The TSA and these airport security procedures must go for this same reason. She goes on to say, being stopped on the street is more than just a small indignity. So is it at the airport.